What is going on, y'all? Welcome to another episode of FitBizU. I'm your host, Jill Coleman, and today I want to talk about continuing to build rapport as your audience grows. Now, this is probably going to sound a little bit like champagne problems. God, Jill, I wish that my audience was getting bigger, so I had to worry about this. And it is. But here's the deal. If you guys have been listening to this podcast for any length of time, we've talked a good amount on the show about paid traffic. And using paid traffic and using ads is a way to grow your audience faster than if you were waiting or trying to build it organically. Now, I always, as you guys know, want you to continue to build things organically. So on social media, showing up consistently, posting, if you want to play to like the algorithm gods or the algorithm slot machine for sure. If you're using things like, we talked about a couple episodes ago, this idea of growth content versus nurture content. And really what we're talking about here is when we grow an audience, and I'll just give you guys like some context from JillFit, as we continue to grow an audience, especially if we're using paid traffic, oftentimes the people who come in don't know the entire origin story. So obviously JillFit's been around for a long time. And when you start as a blogger, like I did, or if you've ever been a blogger, people get to know you really well. They know a lot about you. They know a lot about, your personality. They probably know about your personal life. Maybe they know about your friends, family, acquaintances, kiddos, dogs, all that amazing part of your life. And when you think about, I kind of think about the sort of golden days of blogging. It was really fun. And I was a fan of reading other people's blogs too, because it sort of felt a little bit like a reality show. And now it wasn't always just all personal all the time. It was like a Dear Diary. It was, you provided value and you gave people tools and strategies and things that they could help them. We did a lot of workouts at JillFit. We did a ton of like meal prep tips, nutrition strategies, moderation 365 stuff. And then of course, later in the later years, business things. And when we're kind of all coming up together, and I will say this is probably went from like 2010 to 2016, I felt like I had a really good beat on my audience. I felt like I had not used paid traffic at that point, and because I was a blogger and because I was someone who emailed, and my emails were pretty personal. Like I would definitely be myself in those emails. I shared a lot of just, kind of self-deprecating stuff, embarrassing things, just insights into my day. I remember even in 2016, I created an email newsletter for people if they wanted to know like what I was doing in Australia. I was there for 5 weeks and I called it Down Under Uncovered. And I literally emailed this list of people like every single day for like 5 weeks. And there was a good amount of people on that list. There had to have been close to 1,000 people on that list. So people literally just signed up to like hear what I was up to on this kind of adventure. And of course, this is the time when I had been through my separation, and I had been going through my divorce, and I was living in a new city, and I was dating, and I was on this trip with my girlfriends. So it was kind of fun to sort of listen along or read along. Then as I had this moment, and I think maybe I've shared this before, but I did have this moment on that trip. Okay. So this is back in 2016. And I posted a picture of a glass of wine. And I was in Bali at the time because we were in Australia. Then we went to Bali, and then we went back to, then we're in New Zealand. And I was in Bali with a friend of mine, and both of us were going through obviously massive relationship stuff. She was too at the time, and she was married and ended up getting a divorce, but we were there together. And a lot of our trip was like commiserating, right? Both of us were sad. We were heartbroken. We were going through our own stuff in our long-term relationships, but we were excited about what the future held. And we're just doing our best. Anyway, the picture was a picture of a glass of wine, and you could see it was like I was in an infinity pool in Bali holding this glass of wine, and it was sunset. And so it was a beautiful picture, middle of the jungle. And I had this woman comment on it. And, I always do think about this. I get a lot of like trolling comments and, kind of stuff like that. But this really stuck out to me because I think that it really hit a nerve. She said, if I see one more glass of wine against a beautiful backdrop, I'm going to scream. Where are the pictures of the kids waking you up at 2 a.m. when they're sick? What about the traffic at 7 a.m., bumper to bumper, getting to work? Basically, she was saying like, this is too much. It's too much. Where's the real side of things? And the irony of that comment was that I was going through massive heartbreak. So I was going through hard stuff. Like literally my husband of like 10 years had an affair, right? So like it wasn't like I had the best life. So in that moment, it affected me a lot more than I thought it was going to. It made me start to hold back. And it wasn't until later, like a couple of years later, I was like, oh, like I definitely cooled off sharing openly because I almost felt like, and this is not the truth, by the way, but was feeling like my audience was against me. And I know it's not the truth. In fact, 99.9% of my audience are there of their own volition. They don't have anything bad to say. They're there because they want to be following, want to be subscribed, want to get the content. You guys are listening to this podcast of your own volition. And so, but in my head, I was like, oh, I had this moment where I was like, we're not on the same team anymore. And it felt like I now have to put a little bit of a wall here. I need to be this person who is the quote content creator. I have to be this person who is the coach, who's the expert. And it put a little wall between myself and the audience, not because I was like, I'm better, but because I was like, oh, it's not safe to share in this way. It's not safe. And of course, this is all my projection. So I'm not saying it's true, but it felt like, oh, this isn't safe to share my wins and my successes and the fact that I've built this lifestyle where I can literally be working in Bali. By the way, I'm still going through a massive breakup. Right? I'm still going through all the feels, being cheated on in my relationship and all this kind of stuff. And it was just this moment that was a blip in time, one comment, one time. And looking back, I'm like, wow, that really affected me. And so I kind of created some separation. And I do see this oftentimes in some of my peers and some of my colleagues. I've been in a lot of high end masterminds. And I'll be honest, there aren't a lot of people at the top of this industry, internet marketing industry, personal brand industry, who I feel like are 100% themselves online. And I feel like there seems to be this threshold above which, when people get to that level of success, they have to put on the face, they have to put on the mask, they have to put on this show of perfection. And even when they share stuff that is quote unquote like embarrassing or vulnerable, it's still like shrouded in a lesson, right? It's still like, but I learned this and I wouldn't be the person I would have it. Like it's like the kind of self-deprecating, and it's still kind of endearing. And I started to notice that I was doing some of this and I was like, I don't love this because it's not that it's not me, but it feels like I almost have to watch my back. It's like, oh, I have to make sure that I just have one more filter before I start sharing myself. And it's actually, it was at the Movement Maestro. You guys know Dr. Shantae Cofield, one of my besties. It was at her urging that she was like, you need to show up and own everything that you've done. She's like, she always says, like, you invented the internet business. She's like, you need to start showing up because other women are looking to you, and they're looking to you for cues of what is okay. And if you're coaching these people and telling them, hey, you need to show up authentically and whatever. And like, she was basically like, you need to share more. You need to share all the things that you've done. You need to. And so I was like, oh, okay. And it was just a few years ago that like all of this kind of changed. And I started really sharing a lot more authentically. And because of that, it's been easier, but I have felt as though over the last several years, there has been a little bit of a separation. And I wasn't like, oh, me and my audience are together. We're all doing it together. We're all in the same boat. It kind of almost felt like I had to maintain a certain level of, I don't want to say professionalism because I hope I'm professional, but a level of separation. And I don't want to say being up here because that feels elitist as fuck. But you're almost like, oh, I don't have permission. I can't anymore. I can't afford to like show people the real side of me. Um, but I realized that the audience has grown so much in the last several years. Of course, we've doubled the business and, all these changes that we've made. And I was like, I don't think a lot of my subscribers know me. A lot of the people on my email list haven't been here since 2010, haven't been here since 2012, haven't been here since 2014. And a lot of them have. And of course, they continue to respond to emails and connect with me on social. But I was like, oh, okay, I need to get back to just, instead of selling all the time, or instead of promoting all the time. I just need to add value, and I just need to showcase and pull back the curtain, and that my email lists feel like the safest place to do that. Because when I say safe, because it's permission based marketing, people have to actually opt into your email list. And so I started something last October called Freedom Friday. And I sort of hate that name now. I mean, I like it for what it stands for, freedom being like autonomy, schedule freedom, time freedom, financial independence. But I feel like the word freedom has been like hijacked by like the far right, which I am not part of that politically. And if you are, that's totally cool. But I feel like freedom has become like a dirty word. Of course, freedom is actually a great word, and it means that we have freedoms. And we're in this country, we're in the States, if you're listening to this, and we have freedom. And the beautiful thing about it is that we have freedom to build the life that we want. And we can use the internet to do that. And of course, that's why you guys are here. So I started this weekly, every Friday, email to my list called Freedom Friday. And it was going to be, the promise was going to be that it's just really honest and it's personal. And it's like, hey, it's what Keith and I are up to. It's what I'm traveling, what my vacations, it's my trips, it's my family events, it's my, behind the scenes of the business. And it has been that. And it's been so fun to do that. And I'm glad that we added that back in, because it gives newer people to the audience another opportunity to unsubscribe if they're not on board. Now, this is a good thing. This is what we call attract and repel. We want people to stay if they're in line with my values, if they're in line with the Jill Fit values, if they get value out of what I share, even if that's personal stuff, that's fine. Or it repels them. And it's interesting because we have had we haven't had like over like more than normal unsubscribes, but I've definitely gotten a couple of responses back that are kind of snarky or kind of mean or whatever, and it's fine. But I'm like, oh, okay, these people are newer, um, and people just the anonymity of the online space. You can just literally click respond to an email and like send whatever you want and like shit on someone's inbox, and like that's fine. And so I don't take it personally, but it's been interesting to sort of see this evolution. But the cool thing is that we've had so many more people be like, I love your emails. And it's such a fun treat every week. And it's cool to see the behind the scenes of your life. Or it's cool to hear more about where you came from and what you've done and what the origin stories of Jill Fit and whatever. So overall, I've been loving it, but this is just more of a call to action to you guys to realize that you may have to share intro posts more often. You may need to just add, the reason why I'm doing every Friday for Freedom Friday is like, I want it to feel like almost like a column in a magazine or a column in an online publication, to where like every single Friday there's a column, there's an article up. And so far it's been going really great, and we've been getting awesome feedback, and it's been fun for me because I don't have this, I don't feel this pressure to be like, I need to be adding value and I need to be like teaching stuff all the time. Because I think, again, once you get to a level of success as a coach, you almost feel like you have to just always be quote unquote adding value. Like my personal value is now wrapped into how much value I can add to someone's life. Whereas the Freedom Friday emails are just like, here's what I'm up to. Here's what's going on. Here's, I'm going to Australia with I got engaged. Here's our engagement photo. Like stuff that people may not be fucking interested in, but that I feel like is a service so that people know who they're connecting with. And, we'll kind of see how it goes. But I think it is important. It's the other side of the trust equation. So you guys may have heard of me talk about the trust equation before. We are in the trust business, which means that we are constantly trying to build trust with an audience. And when I say an audience, I mean the people in that audience. Someone follows you on Instagram today, they don't have high trust with you. Why would they? They literally just started following you today. They don't know your content. They're getting used to your content, right? They're starting to see your posts. There was for some reason, they followed you or they opted into your email list, and now they're going to just receive your content. They're going to see your posts, they're going to see your emails, whatever. And that's an opportunity for us to become more intimately connected. And the trust equation has two parts. Well, I guess it technically has three parts. The first part we've already talked about, which is you have to be an expert. So this is like where you share your tools and you quote add value, right? This is where you're like, here's a strategy for this. And so when I'm blogging, I'm going, here's a workout, here's a recipe, here's a meal prep tip, right? Here's an insight on Moderation 365. Here's a tool we use to quit binge eating, whatever it is. So yes, you do need to be an expert, because otherwise people don't know how you could possibly help them. So on one side, you have the expertise. The other side of the trust equation is this relatability, right? This relatedness. Are we the same? Do we have similar personality traits? Do we show up the same in the world? Do we have the same political beliefs? Not that we need to have the same political beliefs, but like, do I care about the same things that this person cares about? What are your values? What are your lines in the sand? And I need to share those things, whether it's through Freedom Friday or through social media or through this podcast, even to where people can get that. They can get a glimpse of like, who's Jill the person, not just Jill Fit the company, who's Jill the person. And if we live next to each other, would we be friends? Would we hang out? We have a glass of wine on the porch together. And that's really important because there's a lot of really smart people on the internet. There's a lot of smart creators and coaches and course creators and things like that. But people are going to buy from you if they feel a connection human to human, because we are in the relationship space. We are in the connection space. We are in the trust space. And so I'm going to feel much more compelled to work with someone who I feel like we're similar. I'm spending a lot of time with this person. I'm going to invest with them. I need to feel like we would be besties. And so if you're not sharing that side of the trust equation, then someone's just be like, oh yeah, she's smart or she's interesting, but I don't really know who she is as a person. And this is sometimes we forget as we do grow. The third part of the trust equation is just consistency, right? I would say times time or times consistency is like, okay, do people trust you because you're always there, because you're showing up? Is it safe to invest with you because they know you're not going anywhere? So it's competency or authority plus relatedness or relatability times time or times reps, right? I just need to see you a lot to build that trust with you. Trust alone, like, familiarity alone breeds trust. If I see you more often, I feel more trusting towards you, right? There you are again. There you are again. There's a safety trigger there. And so how do you do this? If your audience is growing, whether it's growing organically or because you're using paid traffic in our case, number one is have some kind of weekly newsletter or some kind of monthly newsletter that is more personal. I think especially as your audience grows, this is important. So this is what we're doing with Freedom Friday. For better or for worse, this is what we're doing because I just didn't want every single email that I sent to my list being about business or being like high value, right? Or having to promote something or to sell something. And I was feeling like that was happening last fall. And I was like, I don't like this. And I want to get back to sharing like I did when I was a blogger. So having some kind of cadence with your emails would do well. Especially using something like Instagram stories. Instagram stories, especially if you're not promoting something, is a great place to just throw shit that doesn't go anywhere else. So for example, I don't really do a post about like my dog, right? I love my dog, but I'm not doing like a standalone main feed post about Pip. But I love to share my stories because that's part of what we call your knowables, right? Your knowables are the things about you that have nothing to do with your expertise. They have nothing to do with how you're going to help somebody, but they're context for your brand. So, the fact that my fiance is a fireman and he has like a really big mustache, and I don't know, we like to snowboard together and we go to Australia, and my best friends are Danny J, who we have the podcast with, and the Movement Maestro, who I have a program called Legacy with, and the fact that I live at the beach, and the fact that I like to, walk on our little boardwalk here, and I sometimes will skateboard down the boardwalk, and I have hair extensions, and like all of these kind of things that have nothing to do with the expertise at Jill Fit or the thing that I can help someone with, but it gives people context to go, oh, is she like me? Yes or no? Or would we be the same? Would we be friends if I live close by? Yes or no, right? Are we the same kind of person to person? This is really important. Instagram stories is the best place to share these nobles because they just expire after 24 hours. You can throw as much shit in there as you want. Instagram stories. And then like main feed posts that are stories. Well, I've had a lot of success recently, which is sharing stories. Like I'm just telling a story of something that happened and I'm sharing it on a carousel post so that people are kind of swiping through and reading it. And as humans, we love stories, right? That's one of our oldest forms of communication is to tell a story. And when I tell a story, I'm going to pay attention to, am I telling it in a specific way? Am I telling it in a tangible way? So that someone can like picture in their head the story I'm telling and connect with it. So in FBA, we talk a lot about storytelling. We have a whole module called Social Media Bootcamp where we talk about stories and how to tell a good story, whether that's a case study or whether that's your own story, your origin story, whether it's an instance in time. We call this a micro story. And if you see carousel posts that tell a story, this would be called a micro story. It's a moment in time, something, one tiny thing happened, and here's the lesson, or here's what happened, or here's the outcome, or whatever. And stories connect us. Simple things like building rapport with your audience, responding to all comments. Now, you may be like, well, Jill, I have a small enough audience that if I get even one comment, you bet your ass I'm going to be commenting on it, responding back. But some people don't, especially as they get older. They get, especially as their audience gets bigger, or, maybe they don't have as much time. Responding back to DMs. I'm a big fan of voice notes. Chances are, if you've ever DM'd me, you may have gotten a voice note from me because I think it just feels way more personal. And I do get people saying like, wow, thanks for taking the time, or, oh, it's so cool to hear your voice. And so I like it because it has the intonation. You hear how I say what I say, the tone of my voice, the volume, the pace, and you hear the energy in the voice. Otherwise, even you guys listen to this podcast, you know what that feels like. And so I do think that voice notes make everything more personal. And then I have to make a case for my values, my lines in the sand, doing something like this weekly and showcasing who you are as a person. That can be your values. That can be the things you find funny. Those can be the things that you believe in, your principles. So posts that would showcase who you are as a person are things like memes. Like, what do you find funny? What's your sense of humor like? Anytime you repost stuff, like this is one of my favorite things. So I've been doing this thing. I've done it a couple times now and it's gone fairly well. And I'm probably going to keep doing it, where I love being on Threads. Threads is you guys have heard me talk about this platform before. It's owned by Meta. It's kind of like Meta's version of Twitter. And I like being over there because I'm following some really cool people and I'm learning a lot. And I have some some thought leaders that I'm really into. And I've been taking screenshots of some of the threads that I've loved. They're not my IP. They're not my sort of intellectual property. They're not my thought creations. But I'm taking ones that I just feel like are so smart and pithy and truth bomby. And I'm taking screenshots and then I'm making a post out of it. So while it's not my content, I am curating content based on my own values. So I'm saying, hey, here's 20 threads in a carousel that I believe are interesting, funny, represent my own personal values. You can like them or not. I have a couple of posts right now that are these posts, like carousel posts, and has threads, and they're going absolutely viral. Like thousands of shares because people are finding something that they connect with, and then they're sharing it into their story. So we talked about this last week when we talked about the growth content versus nurture content. So if I can even go and curate other people's content and then share it to my feed or my stories, it's like me vouching for that idea. I say, hey, I'm posting this because I believe in this. This is also my opinion, even though it's not my organic intellectual property. It's not my creation. I'm curating things that represent my values, my personality, my sense of humor, whatever. And I'm posting that and saying, hey, these are the things that resonate with me. Do they resonate with you? And as evidenced by the fact that these things are getting shared so much on my feed, I'm like, yeah, people are resonating with these. So knowables is one, memes is one, repost is one. You could even just do a post that's like, here's my values. Welcome to JillFit. Here's what you can expect here. Here are the JillFit values. Here's what you're in for when you are following me or you get onto my email list. Here's what you can expect. And so just sharing your values all the time is a way for people to get to know you as well. So this is not about the authority side. People they're already following you because they already feel like there's something there for them to benefit from. This is the other side of the trust equation, which is the personal nature. And, Shantae spoke at, spoke to our legacy group last week, and she was saying that one of the most important things as an online business owner, when you have a personal brand, is why you, right? A lot of people have the same certifications. A lot of people have the same credentials, went through the same courses, information around nutrition and fitness. It's not commodity. I mean, it is commodity, right? Like workouts are workouts. It's like, why do they want your workouts? It's like nutrition tips or nutrition tips. Why do they want tips from you? So she was like, the big question to be asking is why you? And I don't think that we can get to the why you without sharing the other side of the coin, which is this personal stuff, right? The opportunities for people to relate to your content, and that's how you continue building rapport as your audience grows. I feel like Jenna Kusher does this pretty well. I feel like my colleagues Vanessa and Xander Marin do this well. I think it's Vanessa and Xander on social media. They have a book called Sex Talks. She's a sex and family therapist, and he's kind of like a husband, and they have this business together. And I feel like they do a great job, and they have a huge following. They have almost 1 million followers on Instagram, and they do a really great job of speaking directly to their audience in a way that's like very endearing, very intimate, very fun. And so they've managed to figure out how to have a large audience and still create intimacy with their audience. And they do a lot of this on stories. So if you guys follow their stories, they have kind of a cadence that they go through each week. On certain days, they share, would you rathers. They do like ask us anything. They talk a lot about their courses. They talk a lot about their own personal challenges they have in their own marriage. And I feel like they've done a great job. So those are some examples of people to kind of keep in mind. And it's also where social media has become, I feel like social media has become so strategy and tip driven. Like, hey, here's a tip for this. Here's a tip for this. Here's a tool for this. Here's a strategy for this. It's become so like solution based that I do feel like we are coming back to and having an opportunity to come back to the old blogging days. I think people are like, okay, but who's the person behind the curtain? Who's the person behind the account? And I think we're craving knowing people more intimately. I know I have that experience. Like I'll follow someone, I'm like, I want to know more about their family life, right? I want to know about like, are they married? Do they have kids? Like I want to know like what they do on the weekends. I would love if the curtain was pulled back on some of the people who I learned from. And so I have to remember that as I go into this, and I hope that you guys too. And so how do you continue building rapport as your audience grows? I don't care if you have 100 followers, 1,000 followers, 10,000 followers, 100,000 followers. This is really important no matter what the size of your audience to continue to have that personal touch. Yes, do I want you providing solutions and being the expert and having the authority and all that kind of stuff? Of course. But as your audience grows, there is a need. And it's just like, it's so funny because this comment happened. I forget who it was. I think, I'm not going to remember, but someone reached out to me who's in FBA. And I had shared like last week that I shared like an old, I don't know, fitness modeling picture of me when I was like 24 years old. And she goes, "Oh my God, what?" And I was like, "Oh, did you not know that I was a figure competitor and like a fitness model for years?" And she was like, "No, I literally just found you 6 months ago and joined FBA." So it's like, yeah, we forget that oftentimes people don't know the origin story, right? They don't know the backstory of who you were. And so this could also look like intro posts. Maybe once a quarter, you do an intro post on social media. Like, hey, and you don't have to be like, there are a lot of new followers here. I mean, you can if you want to, but you can say, you know what? It's been a while since I shared my origin story. It's been a while since I've shared about me. So you guys know who you're connecting with. People love those. I personally love reading those, right? Here's 10 things you might not know about me. Here's 10 insights about my personal life, right? Just stuff like that that just connects. There's no like, do this 1, 2, 3 strategy. It's all about connection. And I think that this is really important. This is definitely something that we're having to come back to. I say have to come back to because we've grown so fast in the last few years. And I'm like, oh, I don't want to lose the connection that I have had with my audience for such a long time. And so if you're not on the email list, you can always just go to any of the links in the show notes and add yourself, and you will get on the newsletter. And I send my Freedom Friday emails to all of my lists. So whether you come in via fitness or business or nutrition, I send it to everybody. So maybe if you're not getting it, get on the email list to get the newsletter, see how it goes, see if you're interested in it. Maybe you want to do something yourself like that. But I just wanted to give this reminder because I think it is really important. It's really easy to stay in the expert role. It feels safer to stay in the expert role sometimes, but pulling back the curtain and being vulnerable and sharing who you are with your audience is a massive service. All right, y'all, that's all I got for you. If you are interested in FBA, we are going to be opening the doors this fall for our next cohort. You can go to jillfitfree.com/FBA-waitlist. That is for Fitness Business Accelerator. It's my intro to online business program for those who are just getting started. So if that is you and you're listening to the podcast and you love it, it's just more of the same, except more deeply, more customized for you and coaching directly with me. So go to link in the show notes, add yourself, and get all of those early details and exclusive bonuses that no one else gets. All right, guys, that's all I got for you. Thanks for being here. I will see you on the next episode. Bye.